Welcome. This is the Senior Safety Advice Podcast, and we are so glad that you've made it to a calmer corner of your day. Here, we focus on real solutions, practical help, and the kind of encouragement we could all use a little more of. So let's get to it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another Senior Safety Advice podcast. I'm so happy that we're able to record these on a daily basis. I think it actually gives us a sense of amazing fulfillment being able to share our experiences and our skills with you. So I want to thank you so much for being here with me. All right, we all know that if you've been listening to me, that February is Heart Health and Emotional Resilience Month. So today I want to talk about how to create emotional space for yourself. You know, most people don't feel overwhelmed because they're weak. They feel overwhelmed because they're full of responsibility, full of worry, full of other people's needs. And this is very true for caregivers of senior adults. And when there's no space left inside, that everything feels louder and heavier and much harder to deal with. So creating emotional space isn't about escaping your life. It's about giving your nervous system the room to breathe. And that matters more than people actually realize. I've worked with so many seniors and their families who say, I don't have time for myself. You know, the wife who's caring for her husband, or the adult daughter who's caring for her mother, father, or both parents, and her children, and the husband. There's always something else to do, they say, or I'll rest later, they say. But later rarely comes. And without space, stress builds, patience shrinks, and health tends to suffer. So let's talk about what emotional space actually is. It's not silence, it's not isolation, and it's not pretending that you don't care. Emotional space is the pause between stimulus and response. It's the moment where you don't immediately react, where you don't immediately try to fix something, where you don't immediately absorb everything. That pause can be very powerful, and you don't need hours to create it. You just need intention. One of the simplest ways to create emotional space is slowing transitions. Most stress comes from rushing from one thing to the next. Phone call to a chore, chore to appointment, appointment to worry. There's no break in between. I've seen people and myself feel calmer just by adding a pause between activities. Sitting for 1 minute before standing, taking a breath or two before answering, and letting one moment end before the next begins. That space changes how the body responds. Another way to create emotional space is naming what you're feeling, if you can. Not fixing it, not judging it, just naming it. And that requires you to actually take a moment to understand what it is that you're feeling. So you may say, I feel tired, or I feel frustrated, or I feel worried. When you name it, you separate yourself from it. You're no longer drowning in the feeling, you're observing it. And that observation creates the space that you may need to move forward, because space can reduce overwhelm. Another thing I see that helps a lot is setting gentle boundaries. Not harsh ones, not confrontational ones. Talking about gentle ones. This could be something like, telling yourself, I can't do that right now. Or, I need a little time before you begin the next project. Or, let me think about it. That's my favorite phrase. Let me think about it. Those phrases protect your energy, and protecting energy is part of emotional health. I've seen caregivers feel instant relief when they realize that they're allowed to pause. And they're allowed to say, yeah, not yet. Another way to create space is also limiting your emotional input. Like watching the news 24/7 or even for an hour. Constant updates on your Facebook or TikTok or LinkedIn or Instagram. Constant opinions from others, which frankly mostly feel like judgment. That floods the nervous system. I mean, I have seen people feel calmer just by turning off the news for the majority of the day. Now, or at the very least, choosing one source of news versus many. And if you can make it a trusted source, that would be even better. But these days it's hard to figure out which is which. Reducing input creates space for your own thoughts. And that space really matters. Another powerful tool that I can tell you about is physical space. Your body and your emotions are connected. When your environment feels cluttered, messy, just unorganized, then your mind often does too. It's true what they say, that the outer environment is often a reflection of the inner environment, or the other way around. So clearing one surface, creating one calm corner, that physical space gives your emotions room to settle. I like to say one drawer at a time. Just take a moment, one drawer at a time. I've seen people say, I didn't realize how tense I felt until this space felt calmer. And that awareness is really part of healing. Another thing I want to talk about that I feel is important is permission. So many people don't give themselves permission to rest emotionally. They think they have to stay alert. They have to stay ready. They have to stay strong all the time. But strength also includes softness, permission to pause, permission to not solve everything today at the moment. That permission creates emotional breathing room. And I have seen emotional space grow through small rituals. I know that happens in my lifetime, in my life as well. A morning cup of tea, a short walk, a few quiet minutes before bed. Rituals create predictability. Predictability creates safety, and safety allows emotions to settle. Another thing families don't always realize is that emotional space protects your physical health. When stress stays high, blood pressure rises, sleep suffers, and pain increases. Creating space helps the body to calm down. That calm supports healing. I've seen people feel better physically just by reducing emotional overload. Not because life got easier, but because they created room to cope. And here's something that's very important. Emotional space does not mean you stop caring. It means that you stop carrying everything alone. You can care deeply and still step back. That balance is healthy and it's learnable. So if you're feeling stretched thin right now, start small. One pause, one boundary, one breath before responding, one drawer at a time. That's enough. You don't need to necessarily overhaul your life. Emotional space is built gently. And once it's there, you'll notice more patience, more clarity, more calm. That space becomes a buffer between you and stress. And that buffer protects your health. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you again for being here with me. If today's episode gave you some useful insights or new ideas, then share it with someone who might find it helpful as well. You can discover even more expert tips and helpful guides for seniors and caregivers at seniorsafetyadvice.com. And if you're searching for an aging in place specialist or someone to help with senior care, visit our website at aginginplacedirectory.com. Come back tomorrow for more useful tips, insights, and ideas right here on the Senior Safety Advice Podcast. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel or the podcast yet, then please go ahead and do that right now, because that really helps us to reach more people who could use this kind of support and information. So until next time, take care of yourself and the ones that you love.
This podcast is part of our mission to help older adults live safely and independently. If you'd like to take the next step, visit aginginplacedirectory.com, where you'll find specialists, helpful resources, and inspiration to make every home your place to thrive.